Hey everybody, it's Master Galengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Miss Marvel, Time and Again. And this was another kind of episode for me, but mainly only the parts that kind of dealt with Kamala. Like, I liked the stuff that was going on when we started out pretty much in 1942 India and followed Aisha as she's dealing with pretty much the stuff that we didn't really see before, but it was really just really short. But I kind of like the periodness of it, almost kind of lining up with everything going on in World War II, and then India's independence and like the partitioning and Pakistan and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, granted, I am into history, so I'm more like, it's really kind of screwy when I'm watching this show about a superhero, and I'm like, I actually want this stuff, and I know I'm not supposed, like, I shouldn't want that from this show, but when the show's giving me that stuff that's more interesting than what's going on here, I don't know what's going on with this show. It's like, oh my god. And this was like 40 minutes, it seemed really short, and I'm like, alright. Because most of the bulk is showing us what's happened with Kamala's great grandmother and everything that happened, and it was like kind of short, but it was really kind of cool to see her interacting with Hassan and like pretty much the start of their relationship. Because and stupidly it starts off with like this whole reel talking about like the basic kind of gist of what was kind of going on with India's independence. I say basic kind of gist because it's very surface level, just like, hey, if I skim the wiki, this is kind of what was going on, because it's been under British rule, trying to figure out how to gain its independence, what to kind of do with the Muslims, the Hindus, and the Sikhs, and all the different kind of religious kind of organizations and factions in there, which that shit's interesting to me. Which of course leads to everything of like Pakistan being created for mainly the Muslims and everything kind of going on with that. But it's just very basic and bare bones. And it's like, okay, so you're giving us pretty much enough to kind of see what kind of is going on and a little bit of the history. I mean, I appreciate the attempt, but you are trying to distill a lot in like a little amount. It's not that you shouldn't do it, but again, it's all in how it is executed and how it's done. So after we get this kind of thing, pretty much talking about India's independence, we then see Aisha pretty much Aisha running and then throwing a dagger at a dude who's chasing her, saying "Stop or I will shoot." And it's like, whew, and it's like, all right, what did that add? Like, it really adds nothing. I mean, and it shows that Aisha can like kill somebody with a dagger. All right, and like it just happens, and it doesn't really give us that much information on the character, other than she has the ability to kill if she so deems it, and then nothing else is kind of done with it. It's just like, all right, and it's just so kind of there's not enough context given for what's going on with the scene. I guess this is her kind of running away after the British were coming to investigate what the fuck was going on in that tomb after she got the bangle. Uh, and then we just see that she's sleeping under this tree in this dude's rose field, Hassan, and he's like, "Hey." Uh, he's like, "What the fuck's going on here?" Kind of pokes her with his cane because he has injured leg. She's like, "I'll break your leg if you do shit to me." And he's like, "All right, I'm not really using this one anyway." We have really good dialogue between them as they're kind of feeling each other out. Now, granted, it's not the best dialogue, sure, but it actually gives us characters of like she's wary and untrustworthy, like untrusting of other people that she doesn't know, and he's just like, "What the fuck's kind of going on here? You're kind of trampling my roses." I kind of, you know what I mean? So it's like, all right, if you need a place to stay, food, cottages over there, have at you, do what you will. She then, of course, comes in. He's like, "Hey, here you go, man. I don't know people that can like not eat this, man. Once they smell it." And then she, of course, is eating and everything. And he's asking her questions and brings up this whole kind of poem. And of course, what you're seeking is seeking you kind of works. Is that part of the poem? I'm like, okay, I want to know why that's on the bangle and what's going on with that, but whatever. And then she gives him her name, and I didn't see how it said it was like how long of a time, but she's like, oh yeah, thanks for doing that. And now we've got our family and everything. She's preggers and everything. I was like, all right, cool. And then we have the kid, it's a cute kid, and then we see everything kind of going on with the various different kind of tensions. Evidently, they can't go out and buy things because they're Muslim, and this other dude's kind of bringing it to them, and Hassan's pissed off about that. It's not that the dude is helping, but that he has to do it this way to even begin with. And it's like, okay, I get that. And then as Aisha's closing the door, she sees this woman in the field. And she's like, what the fuck? Goes out. And... Well, this is around the time that we go from the baby, because everything's kind of going nutty. That was like violence and everything. He's criticizing him. Was like, yeah, it doesn't seem to be going very peacefully at all. And then we get to it where she's pretty much like a little 5-year-old girl. And then we see it's Najma and Kamran's mother. She's like, oh, we thought you were dead and everything. It's like, yeah, I kind of hid the bangle because I didn't know what the fuck was going on and I thought you all were dead. I was like, yeah? She's like, all right, you'll have till sundown to go get the bangle so we can go home. It's like, fuck. And then she gives it to, like, Sana, of course, the grandmother. It's like, all right, here you go. And they are going on the train, and Hassan's like, listen, I don't know what's going on. I never really asked you about this shit because it didn't really matter, but you want to kind of tell us what's going on? Because now we've got some weird-ass motherfucker coming from your past trying to kill our asses. Granted, I'm paraphrasing here. He does... And, like, putting my own kind of funny spin on it. But it's like, hey, I've loved you, and it really didn't matter, but are we in trouble? She's like, listen, we just got to book it. We got to get out of this shit. I was like, alright, cool. So everything's going to go nutty. We're then kind of brought into the train thing, and evidently Kamala did go into the past. It's like, alright, fine. Like, time traveling is a weird, wily fucking beast. That's why I was like, shit. This is going to be weird if they don't do this right and actually stick to certain rules or have certain rules about how time travel works in Endgame. And then we get Loki that deals with time traveling and stuff like that, but that actually fit and did its own kind of thing, understanding what was going on with the multiverse sacred timeline. So I was like, okay, yeah, kind of missed me on Endgame because I'm like, this introduces a lot more problems than there should have been, even though I like the movie. Loki's like, alright, here, it's just like, I got a bangle and it got hit and I got sent into 1942. That sounds like it would create a lot more problems than just like, ooh. But, of course, it follows more the kind of loop kind of thing, so they pretty much get to there. She has Hassan go with the daughter to get out. I don't know if she saw Najma, or if Najma saw her, and if she was leading away. It was just like, alright, cool. There's a lot of people moving around, so it wasn't very clear what was going on. But then she's like, where's the bangle? And she's like, no, it's not gonna work. He's like, alright, I don't need you to tell me. Stabs her. I'm like, oh, the fuck? This is the only person that knows where this bangle is. He's like, I'll find it without you. I'm like, wow, that's stupid and short-sighted. And then she pretty much dies, but it takes a little bit, so she walks off and like, this really does a bad job of being like showcasing Najma as like an antagonistic force. She only does mainly what the plot demands. I do not fault the actress for this because she is just given what she's given content-wise and to act it as best as possible. Unfortunately, that is to be more of a plot object, i.e. the grandmother disappeared, so she's gotta die. She's gotta force Kamala to go do certain things, even though if you massage the plot better and actually worked it out into a better space, she doesn't have to act in these weird, fucked up ways and be like, I'm gonna kill all you people at this wedding. Why? Because I want to go home. Okay, is there any kind of time-relevant thing that you are doing that you need to do this? Like certain kind of astral sequences or whatnot that planets have to be in a line, you have to be in a certain place at a certain time to do this shit? Because that makes sense, but no, I'm just no motherfucker that want to get home. I get that, but can we do that without exploding everything? That's not an unreasonable fucking request, my friends. Especially since Kamala doesn't know much of what's going on. However, she doesn't bring this up because, again, she is also, like, the weak kind of one because they really don't develop her beyond, I am a Captain Marvel fanboy, and I have access to powers. It's really, really showcasing how they have stretched this to a point of, like, I got nothing. And they just fill in other kind of weird things. It's like, oh, okay, I'd rather learn about this character and that character and what's going on here and what's going on here. It's like, ah. And it's not like I hate Kamala. There would be great ways to, like, do stuff with her character. It's just the execution isn't there here for me. And they need more character depth and development on her. They're developing more of the people around her than her. Like in this episode, we get stuff about her great-grandmother, her grandmother, and her mother. Then I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. So Kamala then pops up, sees her great-grandmother, and be like, ah, shit, you dying. And she's like, all right, here you go. Here's this pic. Help my daughter back to her father. It's like, all right. And then she takes her a little bit. It's like, oh, I was the stars and stuff. Here's where this kind of gets kind of confusing. She's like, I can't make stars, but I can make circles. And then pretty much tries to, like, I don't know why she did it, other than, like, her grandma said, the stars helped me. And she's kind of, like, pootsing onto this, like, boot, boot, boot thing, like, kind of a fucking platforming thing. And I'm like, she's just doing it at ground level. I'm like, other than your grandma saying stuff about, like, stars, what the fuck's going on with this? And I don't know if it's because the grandma also had the bangle back then, because she's got the bangle. I don't know if that would make any kind of time confluence. Fucking like, hey, I'm utilizing this thing while that same thing's over there and in two different kind of boom, baby. But this is not caring about that, so okay. And then somehow either one of her platforms turns into stars, or like the daughter's able to do it, or I don't fucking know. The stars pop up and Kamala's like, oh, it was me. And then she gets back to her, the daughter gets back to her dad. They get on the train and boot, everything's alright. And she gets booped back into the present. We also see that Kamala's mom's like, where the fuck's my daughter? And the grandma's like, yeah, that kind of happened to my dog. I had to get him microchipped. Because that was kind of scary. And then she's like, Kamala's a girl. And if there was a legal way to do that, I would. I'm like, that's why you kind of got some problems. Because, listen, there's protecting, and then there's, like, no privacy. I will find you kind of shit. Now, granted, Kamala is in a dangerous situation, but, yeah, I would not be happy if my parents chipped me. Alright? Like, now granted, I'm not gonna fall off the face of the fucking earth and just be like, hey, you find me like 6 days later in fucking France twirling baguettes off the fucking Eiffel Tower and shit while screaming about like death metal. You know, because that would just be an insane fucking situation. But there's got to be a balance there. I know they're kind of playing it as comedy, but I'm like, that's not funny to me. Because then the cousins are like, yeah, you could just go into the Find My Phone thing for your family plan. It's like, okay, and why am I just learning about this now? Because you don't look into what you do. It's like, you have phones. Of course they're going to be tracking you. It fucking sucks. But it also helps in certain situations. It's like, okay, the thing is, both parties need to be like, hey, listen, you can turn on the tracking when I'm having contacted you and things are getting nutty. And you're like, I don't know where they're at. And it's like, all right, and I haven't gotten in contact with you. So it's like, yeah, do that. But other than that, don't fucking watch me. You're like, not that it would be fucking much anyway. It's like, hey, he didn't leave the house today. No shit. When do I, asshole? Fuck you, because that's the way I roll. Like, I wouldn't go many places. But she then figures that out, and that's how they kind of get up to the present day. And the other clandestine are like, hey, look at this thing. There's a hole in the veil. All right. And it looks... Okay, listen. I did Supernatural. I'm like, shit, they kind of ripped that right from the fucking season. When Jack opened a rift in, like, season 13. and all the shit with the apocalypse world, and 14, and then, oh, Jesus Christ. I'm like, shit. And then one of them's going, I'm like, I'm going home! And then she gets turned into like a crystal thing and boned, and I'm like, shit. And then like it's spouting energy everywhere, and Kamala's like, I need to fucking close this thing. And I'm like, yes. There you go. And then she's like, Najma, help me with this. And she's like, yeah, I could, she's like, yeah, I can close it. What? Alright, cool. She's like, it's gonna kill me though. And she's like, you don't have to do this to. And she's like, what about Cameron? It's like, yeah, I kind of like left him behind. It's like, you can go back to him. I'm like, okay. Like, I don't care about like the family trouble and the drama. It's like, all right, cool. I cared more about the other stuff, so just do you do. She's like, I'm gonna do it. And then she kind of closes it, dies, and somehow spooted off energy that went into Cameron and gave him powers. I'm like, wow, that's just fucking plot convenient and just fucking not explained at all. But go off on it. Well, there was one thing with the Aisha thing that she did something with the bangle. I don't know if that was inscribing something or making it so that way the daughter got the things, but it was very unclear. That's the only other kind of thing that we've seen with that bangle and with somebody else using powers. But like Cameron's now got powers. I'm like, all right, cool. And he goes, whoa. So then the mom's like, oh yeah, you're that light person. It's like, yeah. It's like, all right. And like, it's not that big of a reveal. It's like, oh yeah. And she's like, how did you do all this? And I'm like, there's a whole, because she gave the photo to the grandma. I was like, oh, my mom and my dad. That's really cool. I'm like, yeah, that is cool. Glad for you. And then the mom's like, yeah, how is all of this possible? And I'm like, okay, it's not that hard to explain. And the grandma's like, do what good do. It's like, she essentially said because the plot demands, and there's no further explanation needed. And I'm just like, it's not that difficult. It's not like I have to explain in 38 steps how I built nuclear fusion in my butthole and then flew into a, like, jumping field and became Thanos' father's former cousin's roommate and fought a Celestial with a, like, spiked dildo. Granted, that gets insane and completely crazy and would require copious amounts of footnotes, but I just explained what happened in that she got bangle hit. This bangle unlocked her, like, powers of doing, like, shit. And then, yeah. Oh, and Kareem just kind of was like, yo, you probably want to do this shit. And she's like, all right, we'll go home, but let me go talk to him. And he's like, yeah, I'm all right. Waleed would be proud of you. And it's like, Woody? He only knew her for, like, a day or two. Like, I mean, sure, there'd be some level of pride, but I'm like, if I know somebody for like a day or two, I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm glad you didn't blow up the world. Good job there, buckaroo. And then he's like, yeah, I'll help you if I can, but I got some warrants out in the U.S. And I'm like, what the fuck did you do? And it's like, I was like, here you go. Here's the Red Daggers thing. I gotta go handle shit. Peace. And it's like, all right, cool. And then they go home, and we see the kind of different kind of perspectives of how the grandmother didn't hold on to Kamala's mother tight enough, and how Kamala's mom is just not ready to let her go. She knows about that, and it's interesting seeing the different kind of parenting perspectives. And then it was kind of funny because the grandma's like, yeah, she was rebellious, and she wanted to go to the U.S. to follow this star. Bruce Springfield is like, no, Bon Jovi. And I'm like, damn it, even though you make this woman inconsistent, I like to learn more about her because I'm like, all right. Though granted, I'm like, okay, you went to Jersey. Not Bad Mountain, Jersey. It's just, there's, that's always the thing to be made fun of. But I'm like, to go to Jersey for Bon Jovi? Yeah, I get that. There's some food there, too, that I'd like to try as well. So I'm like, get it. I would almost want to know if she, like, it's weird that I'm almost like, okay, you can give me a little bit of her, like, going to Bon Jovi concerts and shit. It's like, alright, cool. I do like the running gag of, like, Bon Jovi. I'm like, yeah, Bon Jovi. There you go. And then they're just like, oh, okay, we get everything, hugging and all that. And we get a little bit of how Cameron goes and asks Bruno for help. It's like, yeah, my name's Bruno. It's like, I literally thought your name was Brian. Like, he wasn't being an asshole about it. I'm glad we got that. He's like, listen, my mom will probably come here to find me. He's like, all right, cool. like, he's like, all right, yeah, I'll help you, even though you've been calling me the wrong name and everything. He's like, all right, that's all right. We started over. Yeah, damage control. Yeah, I'll help you. Ain't no problem. And then the damage control, and then Cameron's like, ah, motherfucker, and then smacks it with like some power. I was like, all right, whatever. You're not gonna explain shit. Do it, whatever. And then it ends after the drone falls down and somehow causes an explosion in the place, and they both like covered themselves on the ground, and that's it. And I'm like, fuck this shit. Like, whatever. Like, again, even though I say this stuff and kind of make fun of certain things going on, it isn't the worst show that I have seen, but it's definitely neutral ground of, like, it really doesn't do a lot of good things, and it really doesn't do a lot of bad things that, like, evens it out to, like, any kind of other spot for it. And I would really be hard-pressed to even recommend this to people, let alone, like, Ms. Marvel fans. Like, I haven't read much of the comics of hers, like, at all. Sometimes I've seen her pop up in certain things that I've read, but I've never had a problem with her character. But I'm just like, I think she deserves a better adaptation than this. You know? I'm going, alright. It's just really kind of weird. They're almost like trying to do too much with too little at this thing. And I'm just like, alright. And then after this, I think we'll next see her in the Marvels. So we'll see how that goes. And how, like, well, granted, we still have another episode, of course, but I'm like, alright, the antagonist is dead. Are we setting up Cameron as an antagonist now? Like, Kamala didn't kill kill her mother, you know what I mean? She fucking was going, I want out of this motherfucker! And then smacks the bangle, and then, fuck, we got a big ass hole. It's gonna kill my ass. That ain't good. Like, you could be like, you killed my mother. It's like, you could say that in, like, the loosest definition of, like, 35 different universes far removed. Kamala didn't do shit, and there ain't shit she could have done. I ain't gonna buy it, and if they just have them fight, I'm just gonna be like, whatever. It's mainly because the plot demands it at that point. So, we'll have to see how this thing ends. I'm just looking forward to, mainly every character except Kamala and Cameron at this point. Well, Bruno's okay, but it's mainly because he's almost a non-entity and is kind of like the tech dude. So they could do stuff with him, but it's like, I just do the tech and, like, more shit. Like, the parents and the brother and, like, everybody else has more interesting stuff. And I'm like, bring MK back. Give him shit to do. Like, like, you got the red daggers that are almost, if you dive into them, kind of Assassin's Creed-ish. So I'm like, whatever. Just, most of it doesn't really ring with me and doesn't really resonate with me as much as I would like. But if you like it and you're enjoying it, power to you. That's good. I'm happy for you. And I hope this doesn't take away from that. You know what I mean? Just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it. You know what I mean? Go with you. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.